Okay. So it's not necessarily raining, but it is misty, as you can see. It's Saturday morning. It's roughly 7 a.m. I woke up at about 6:30. Couldn't really sleep anymore. Tossed and turned for about a half an hour. And then decided to go ahead and get this walk over with. Because it's supposed to be kind of off and on rainy all day. Oh, there's a tracker of something. I don't know what. Deer? About the only thing we have out here. There's no moose or elk out in this part of Colorado. At least, not since white man came. So, yeah, it's a little misty. Actually feels good. Reminds me of certain days where I grew up, and then reminds me of more days when I was in the military. Get up in the morning and have a day like this, and you still got to do PT out in the grass, and then you still got to go for a run. Yeah. So, what did I say? I said it's 7 o'clock in the morning. It's Saturday. It's May 12th. It is my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I am no longer the answer to life, the universe, and everything. I am now lucky. Woohoo. I'll be lucky when I get one of those high-paying jobs that requires little to no effort, and a hot girlfriend who's half my age, who thinks I walk on water, by the way. Yeah. Yes. Simple dreams. Plus, I want to be able to travel. I love traveling. Love seeing new things and experiencing new things. I've said that before on the action cam. I don't know if I've said it on this camera. Alright, so I don't want to say this is the time that I would see coyotes or mountain lions or anything, because we do have those in the area apparently. Sorry, I'm buckling the whatchamacallit. But if I did, maybe that's what it is. But if I did see coyotes or mountain lions or anything, it'd probably be on a morning like this. I didn't say it, but I did hear something the other night. Oh, that's kind of cool. Don't see that a lot in Colorado. The spider webs that have mist and dew and everything on them. Yeah, I see a lot of them. Huh. But, yeah, the other night, I've been sleeping with the bedroom window open for about 2 weeks now. And the other night I happened to hear it sounded a lot like coyotes. Hell, if I had my way, I'd say it sounded like something bigger than coyotes. But knowing there are no wolves in Colorado, well, there are, but none in the wild that anybody knows of, I'm going to go with coyotes. But it was, especially since where I used to live, up next to Cherry Creek State Park. I used to live between Cherry Creek State Park and a golf course. And, so there'd be coyotes that would go back and forth between the two, constantly crossing between the neighborhood. So we, I've seen plenty of coyotes. I've heard them at night, especially in the summer when the windows are open. I've seen them in the neighborhood. Hell, it was a couple of years ago. Actually saw, open the door on Christmas Eve, and there was one right there on the doorstep. So yeah, used to see them quite a bit. So I know what they sound like. I've heard them enough times over the years. And it sounded like coyotes, but it sounded like bigger coyotes. To the point where I wondered if they were dogs. And it sounded like it came from over here somewhere. So far enough away that I wasn't going to run outside and see it, but close enough that I could still hear it. And if you've ever been around coyotes when they've killed something and they all get yippee yippee, that's exactly what it sounded like, only bigger, like a deeper tone and a louder tone. So, did you hear that? It was a squeal of some sort. That was it again. That could be a dog. Maybe a dog got left outside overnight, or got put out this morning and is crying because it wants back in. That's just the two squeals, though. I don't hear any more. It definitely came from that direction somewhere. Huh. So the camera looks like it's giving everything trying to white balance everything out to give everything and it's giving everything a cooler tint. In reality, this is all very, very brown and green. So yeah. So rumor is there's coyotes in this area, and it wouldn't surprise me. It's just in 6 months I haven't seen any. And I've only heard them, we'll say twice now. Once way back in November when I was walking Rufus at night. I heard them off in the distance, very clear, very definitive coyotes. And then maybe the other night. Now they also say there's mountain lions that come through here. And there's, if you get on that neighborhood social network site called Neighborhood or Next Door, the next door people out here will they'll post about mountain lions on a regular basis. They'll say, mountain lion spotted this area, mountain lion spotted that area, the mountain lion came through my yard last night, etc. Now, I don't know how accurate those claims are. For example, my roommate said she was up one night in, I want to say December, January, and she looked out the window because the motion detector turned the light on, and she saw a bunch of deer out there, and they ran away. And she said she just sat there and stared out the window for another second or two because they were just beyond the light. You could just make them out more like shadows or impressions against the darkness than anything else. And she said then something else came through, something much smaller than a deer, but moving much quicker. And, she said with a kind of gracefulness that she associates with a mountain lion. And I've talked to other neighbors out here, and they've all mentioned mountain lions do come through here from time to time, but it's few and far in between. They said 20, 30 years ago, they'd come through here more often, but now it's so rare that I question if my roommate didn't just see, somebody's dog that got out of their yard and ran around the neighborhood trying to chase deer. Like a German Shepherd or a Malinois or something like that. Something that's large but not too large, but still graceful enough to, chase deer. So, again, I don't really know. It's all rumor and speculation at this point. I mean, there could be people, because there are some people out here that have chickens and they have horses and even some ponies and goats and stuff. But there are some people out here who I would firmly believe there's a deer. A couple of them actually, right through the trees. But their chickens are killed or their goats are killed or something, and they ride it up to being a mountain lion instead of a coyote. For example, the house back there that has the RV and the chicken coop and everything, I was walking, and I told the story the other day about how Rufus ran over there and chased the chickens. A couple of, I want to say in January, maybe. I think it was right before or right after Christmas, but I want to say early January. I was walking this trail with Rufus and Charlie, and a bunch of people were over there at the chicken coop, and I was like, oh, hi, how's it going? We just moved in down here. And they're like, oh, okay, hi, how you doing? Da-da-da. Just FYI, I see you got jogs. But FYI, there's some coyotes around here. And I was like, oh, did you see them? They're like, no, they killed our chickens. I'm like, oh, and you're sure it's coyotes? And they're like, what else would it be? And I'm like, could have been a dog. A dog that got loose. Or a dog that was put out. So yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like you don't have evidence of something, but you're certain, 100% certain, your speculation. And then we get into probabilities and the possibilities again. Is it possible that it was coyotes that killed their chickens? Absolutely. Was it a good possibility? Probably. Was it possible? Absolutely. It's a very real possibility. But is it more probable that it was somebody around here's dog? I mean, hell, it could have been Rufus. Except Rufus was older and he didn't wander off like that at night. So, and I'm fairly certain that particular day he didn't kill any chickens. So yeah, it's like, are you sure it wasn't your neighbor's dogs? And I asked that. I said, you sure it wasn't the black dogs that live over here? And they're like, no, we know those people. Their dogs are nice. They wouldn't kill our chickens. Like, are they coming or what? These two giant black dogs live here. They're not related, but they look very similar to each other. Sometimes they run up to the fence and bark at us. I say us because first few times I met them, I had Rufus and Charlie with me, and then not typically, but about 50% of the time I do this walk, I have Charlie with me. But, what's the Occam's razor? Is it more likely that it's coyotes? Or is it more likely that somebody's dog got outside of their fence or outside of their home or was left out overnight and decided to kill your chickens? So, that's just one of those things. Whew. Oh, I didn't really have anywhere to go beyond that. I don't know what I'm going to do today for my birthday. If plans had worked out correctly, I would have been on my way over to Morrison, Colorado right now. I had scheduled a big ride this morning. And yesterday canceled it due to the weather. So, I mean, weather's not too bad, but we were going to go up into the mountains and cruise around for a few hours. And everybody started texting me yesterday morning. Oh my God, at like 6:30. Hey, it looks like rain. Hey, have you checked the weather lately? It looks like it's going to rain tomorrow. Hey, you know, weather looks nasty tomorrow. Can you reschedule the ride? And I was like, fine, whatever. So yesterday afternoon, I rescheduled it for next weekend because it's actually supposed to be rainier tomorrow. With today is just supposed to be off and on rain. Tomorrow's supposed to be full-blown thunderstorms and everything. So my plans for first half of my birthday got canceled. I have nothing to fill the time. A friend of mine called me last night and said, hey, something came up. I can't take you out to dinner on your birthday. Now, this is one of my longest running friends. I met her way back in 1999 after moving to Colorado. We've been friends ever since. There's times where we'll go weeks or even months without talking to each other, but then there's times where we talk every single day. Which, before she got married, we talked every single day. And then she met the guy who became her boyfriend, who eventually became her husband. And he's doing so much better off than I am. He started a software company, got it up and running, blah, 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 and then sold it for 7 figures. So, you know, at the ripe old age of like 32, 33, she never had to work again. So, which was right up her alley because she grew up independently wealthy. Her parents made a lot of money, lived in a very expensive neighborhood, sent their kids to the most expensive school in Colorado, the most expensive private school, I should say. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, it's right up her alley, not having to work. Whew. So yeah, she called me up or texted me last night saying, sorry, can't take you out for your birthday this weekend, maybe next weekend. And I said, well, you know, my Saturday's already booked next weekend, or at least my Saturday morning. She's like, well, good thing there's Saturday evening and Sunday then. I'm like, fair enough. And my roommate, I mean, I see her almost every day. Out of the blue, I think on Thursday, she's like, what kind of plans do you have for your birthday? And I was like, well, we were going to do a ride, but the weather might get in the way. So, I don't know. Maybe go see a movie or something? And she's like, oh, well, I was going to take you out to dinner. I'm like, oh, really? First I'm hearing of it. You know. She's like, well, you said you were busy, so I decided not to take you out to dinner. Okay. But I know it's not going to be anything too nice or too fancy, because her boyfriend will throw a fit. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of anything to do today to fill the time, especially now that I'm up way too early. I'd slept like crap the last couple of nights. So I was real tired yesterday. Kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. not drained, but I got up in the morning, did my thing, blah, 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 had breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And then somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I just got so incredibly drained. I actually did. I went and laid down thinking if I could just get a little 20 or 30 minute power nap, I'd be good for the rest of the night. Well, I didn't fall asleep per se, because that's when everybody decided to start texting me again. Not about my birthday. I got like 7 texts over the course of an hour, which, every time I started to fall asleep or actually fell asleep, the text would come in talking about the ride tomorrow. Are you sure you want to cancel it? Maybe you don't want to cancel it, because I'm going to have my kids next weekend. I can't come out and ride with you next weekend, but I can do it this weekend. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you just want to have another ride with more experienced riders so that we can still get out and ride, because the more experienced riders, this kind of weather's not going to bother them. It's the other weather. What do you call it? I don't even know what I was trying to say. I was thinking about something else. But it's the newer riders. That's what I was thinking. The younger riders, the less experienced riders who might be intimidated by this kind of weather. I mean, hell, I got great tires on my bike. I still get intimidated by wet pavement. So, and as you can see, I don't do this every day, so there's really no comparison. But as you can see, there's it's just misty. So I'm gonna go down here and we'll turn around and head back and take a shower, have some breakfast, and try to figure out what to do with the rest of my day. So needless to say, I did not get a nap yesterday afternoon, which sucks. So, and then and I didn't stay up very late last night. I think I went to bed at like 11. I really do. I think it was like 11:03 when I went to bed. Only because I was bored. Had I lived in town still, I might have gone out to a bar or something to, hey, it's my last day being this age. At midnight, I turn a new age. Buy me a drink. But, only 2 miles from the nearest bar, but I'm like 50 miles from the nearest bar I actually want to go to. So, all right. So we're here at the turnaround point. I'm wearing hiking boots, but my toes are getting wet. I think they're not exactly waterproof, but so that's north. Well, that's north. That's south. If we can get in a spot where you can see past the tree there. There you go. That's south. As you can see, it's just kind of misty. It's not really rainy or anything. But my toes are getting wet. I was actually thinking I might be able to use these as motorcycle boots. I do have motorcycle boots, but they're the kind that come up like 3/4 way up your calf. Oh, and there's Champ. Which is nothing technically against it, but they're just uncomfortable to walk around in. So when you get to your destination and you actually want to walk around and maybe walking up and down the street, stretch your legs, they're a pain in the butt. And I mean, I've had them for probably 10 years now. You'd think they'd be broken in, but since they're Gore-Tex and not leather, they don't stretch with your feet. They keep one shape. And, I'm getting older. I'm fatter, therefore my feet are wider, which means putting them on is incredibly uncomfortable. So I was like, oh, well, I got these hiking boots that sadly I almost never wear. I probably wear them 2 or 3 times a summer. Used to be I'd go hiking every weekend. But I was like, oh, maybe I can use these as riding boots or something. That way, when I get to my destination, they'll be fine. You know, I can still walk around, but if they can't make it through this without my toes getting wet, how in the world am I supposed to make it through like riding in water or riding in rain without my feet getting soaked? So, yeah. I have another pair of boots that I bought recently because the price was so freaking good on them. Carhartt steel-toed leather boots. I was like, oh, maybe I can use those for riding, because they're actually very comfortable, and they're leather, and they do come up to your ankles, but I don't know how well they would do in the rain. And I jumped online when I had this thought, and I was like, can you wear steel-toed boots as riding boots? And all the websites I found, people were saying, oh, don't. Some variation of, if you wreck, you could bend the steel and cut your toes off. I'm like, oh, well, that's why I looked this up, to see if it was a viable option. I don't want to cut my toes off. And somebody else on one website piped in and said, think about that for a second. If you wreck hard enough to bend steel, to bend your steel-toed boots, you would have lost your toes anyway. It's like, oh, fair enough. So, but the problem is the toe area is so thick on them that I don't know how easy or how well it would be to shift. You know, would I be able to get my toes up under the shifter? So, but they are the kind of boots that, you know, you can wear in the wintertime. Although I did buy them in the wintertime and I wore them a couple times, but that steel gets cold and it gets cold quick. So I never want to wear them in the wintertime again. At least not for a long period of time. You know, it's one of those, if you have to go to a construction site and you need the steel-toed boots for a couple hours, sure, whatever. But to wear them all day long, that would be painful. Because, you know, metal does not hold heat very well. So yeah, I wore them a bunch in the spring here, and they were great. Except, well, I don't like wearing shoes to begin with. It's something, even my mom will tell you, yeah, Jason always hated wearing shoes when he was a kid. Always hated having shoes on. And then my roommate, she said that to my roommate one time. And my roommate's like, he still hates wearing shoes. I do. I don't like wearing shoes. I'd much rather be barefoot. And when it warms up a little, maybe I'll try this trail barefoot. I mean, the worst thing on it is the horse poop and the pine needles. But when you're wearing, you know, leather boots like that, or Gore-Tex boots, or any other kind of boots like that, your feet get hot and they get sweaty, and I hate that. I hate that more. I don't want to say more than anything, but I hate it a lot. You know, when you're sitting at your office, and you're just sitting there doing your work, and your feet are hot and they're sweaty, and all you want to do is kick off your shoes and air your feet out a little bit, but you know it's unprofessional to do so, even though The ladies do it all the time because they can get away with wearing sandals at the office and you can't. Yeah. And George isn't out again. I sometimes wonder if he actually lives here, or if he's like their kid's dog or something, because it's an older retired couple that live here. And sometimes George is here and sometimes he's not. And they don't seem to be interested in him whatsoever. So I'm assuming they either dog sit him a lot, or it's kind of one of those, we got a dog because when you have 3 acres, you're supposed to have a dog. I don't know. But yeah, I haven't seen him the last couple times, so I can understand that completely. If I had a dog and I traveled a lot, was out of town a lot, or worked a lot of long days at work or something, and I had a family member with a piece of property, I'd say, hey, I'm going to be out of town for Monday morning through Thursday evening. Can you hold my dog for me? Now, I would never take a job like that if I had a dog, especially if I'm single with a dog, because dogs don't understand what's going on, and all they know is that you're leaving them, that the pack is being split up, and it's really, really not good for their psyche. It's not good for their emotional health to see the family split up that much. It's bad enough when everybody goes to work for the day or school or whatever, because the dog doesn't understand that, and the dog doesn't have a watch, doesn't read time. So for them, for a dog, when you leave for that 15 minutes, you're just running to the store real quick and you're going to come back with a gallon of milk. It's the same as if you've left for 6 months. They don't know the difference. So to leave them on a regular basis or to be gone more often than you're home is just not really fair to the dog, which is why I'm not interested in getting a dog while I live out here. Because as much fun as it would be to have a dog with me right now, whether it's a puppy or an older dog or whatever, just to take them on the walks like this, eventually I'm going to find a job, and chances are I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be gone for, say an 8-hour workday plus an hour for lunch, because, it's so far away I can't just run home for lunch, plus an hour each way drive time. So now you're looking at 11 hours, 12 if there's traffic, and chances are there'll be traffic. So that's half a day. Then you're home for what? 4 hours, maybe 5 hours before you go to sleep. And in that 5 hours, you got to find time to feed yourself, find time to prep for the next day, find time to walk the dog, find time to maybe exercise or go for a walk like this. If you got a family, that's find time to, help your kids with their homework, or find time to whatever. So yeah, it wouldn't be fair to the dog. I mean, I took a job years ago when I still had my previous dog, and oh my God, I hate myself so much, because I loved her to death, my previous dog, and I kept making bad decisions based on this is temporary, this is temporary, this is temporary. It's those kind of things that she didn't understand, but I wanted her to know anyway. This is temporary. This is a temporary job. This is a temporary gig. This is, these long days are temporary. Next quarter, I'll be working shorter hours. Next quarter, this project will be over. Next quarter, I won't have to be gone so much. That kind of thing. But unfortunately, and I learned this lesson a little too late, next quarter, this project was over. They no longer needed you at the company, so they'd let you go. And then you're home all the time, which is great, but you have no money coming in, so you can't do anything. So, had a couple of years like that with her, but then I also, at one point, or for like 4 or 5 years of her 6 years of life, I worked fairly close to home, so I was able to run home for lunch, but I was only there for 20 minutes. 20-minute drive home, 20 minutes there where we'd go for a quick walk, or I'd take her outside across the street to the green belt, and I'd throw the frisbee for 20 minutes, get her some exercise, and then 20-minute drive back to the office. But that was the closest I've ever worked from home outside of being in the military. Everything else has been, it's too long to go for lunch. So, I ended up leaving her there for 9 hours every day. 10 if you count drive time. And I felt bad about it, but I kept saying, when it gets better, when it gets better. Problem is, she died before it got better. And then I got Rufus. And like I said to the action camera a couple times, I won't say I overcompensated with Rufus, although that's how I think I overcompensated with Rufus, but, I made it a point to prioritize the dog first, just as any parent should make it a point to prioritize their kids first. Because you have to ask yourself one day, what's the most important thing in your world? And if your answer is your loved ones, your kids, but you're not actually proving it with your actions, then is it really the most important thing in your world? Now, parents have the luxury of, when your kids are old enough, and for 18 years, they go to school. Or not 18 years, but 12 years, they go to school. So you don't have to be home all day. You don't have to make sure you run home and let the kid out of the baby cage. The school's going to do that. So you're lucky, parents are a little bit more lucky in that regard. But, if your kids get home from school at 3:30, but for some reason you decide you need to work until 7 or 8 every night, then you're not prioritizing your children. There's nothing wrong with working till 5 and then driving home, or working till 4:30 and driving home, or whatever the case may be. But, that's being around your kids. I had a friend years ago, and I still use the term friend even though we don't talk too much anymore. He made a lot of decisions that I thought were stupid. I made some decisions I'm sure he thought was kind of dumb. And to be honest with you, when his kids started working with him, he changed. He went from happy-go-lucky Robert to, kind of, always stressed out Robert. But that's one of the decisions that I don't agree with, is his kid got out of college. He owned his own business. His kid got out of college, couldn't find a job, didn't want to work in the industry that he got a college degree in, which was music management. He wanted to be a band manager or a venue manager. Couldn't find a job, so his dad said, come work for me. So you got this 22-year-old kid without an ounce of experience in the world, and his dad made him a vice president of the company, with all the rights, none of the responsibilities, and all the rights and privileges, but none of the responsibilities thereof. So, the kid was driving his dad nuts. He did have a couple of decent ideas, and the same things that I told his dad years prior. Here it is, 2007, 2008, and back in 2002, 2003, I'm telling his dad, go get a website, go get a website, go get a website, and his dad's like, I don't need one. That's stupid. I don't see what the point is. His kid gets out of college and says, Dad, you need a website, and Dad's like, okay, go find me a website. How much is it going to cost? Stupid stuff like that. So it's like, oh, you don't want to listen to me, but you'll listen to him. But then his kid made, I don't want to say made some decisions, but he irked the employees the wrong way, from what I understand. The employees did not respect him in any way, shape, or form. He kept making decisions that put people on edge or really upset them. And, to be honest with you, sometimes you have to make a decision. But these were decisions that could have been handled better. The point being, this kid had never worked for anybody else but his dad in his entire life. When he was in high school, on the weekends and summer breaks and whatnot, he worked for his dad. When he was in college on summer breaks and whatnot, he worked for his dad. He got out of college, he went to work for his dad. I remember one time they called me up and they said, "Hey Jason, we need some help. Can you help on this day? It'll be about 6 to 8 hours." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come help." Because again, friend. And, there's a lot of times I don't mind helping out a friend. Plus he was going to pay me a little bit of money. So I go down there and, trying to help. And, he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "meet David at this address. He's in charge. He knows what's going on. He'll get you started." And I'm like, "Okay." So I go down there. And David's there and a couple other employees are there. And everybody's just kind of standing around. And I'm like, "Okay, how long you guys been here?" And the employees are like, "About 15 minutes. And I'm like, "And you haven't started working yet?" And they're like, "He hasn't told us what to do." And then David, the son, he just kind of wandered off and started doing his own thing and didn't give any kind of direction to anybody else. And we're talking unskilled labor here. So it's not like these kind of people are proactive thinking. Okay, well, I got to get this done. I got to get that done. We know what needs to be done. So they sat around waiting for David to make a decision on, and I didn't know these employees. I didn't know what they were good at or best at or anything. So I went and found David and I'm like, "Hey, do you want to assign tasks to these people or tell us what to do or anything?" And he's like, "I'm busy trying to get this thing working, piece of equipment." I'm like, "Okay, well, you're paying these people to stand still over here. You might want to give them some direction." And he just looked at me like I ruined his day. And I'm like, "I would have, except I wasn't being paid as a manager. This was a favor I was doing for a friend more than anything." And I was specifically told David was in charge. So David was in charge. And he was blowing it. His dad showed up 2 hours later and people were hodgepodge around doing stuff and it was going to have to get redone because of the way. Because in this type of a environment, typically you do this first, then this first, then this first. So you're not walking all over yourself and not dirtying up what you've already done. Yeah, I think I'll walk down here to where the fence is broken. Kid left their bicycle in the yard here. So yeah, so the dad came in and he's like, "Why are you guys doing it this way?" And I'm like, "Because David said just to get started." He didn't give anybody any clear directions on how he wanted things done. And his dad was pissed because he just added a couple hours of work to the entire team. But then there was more where David would fail to provide customer service to certain clients or fail to get the billing out, fail to follow up on accounts receivable, fail to, have a handful of things happen. And, and his dad, whenever me and his dad were hanging out, he'd always complain. He's like, "David's screwing everything up, and David lost me this customer, and David doesn't know how to do this. He's been working with me for 2 years. How does he not know how to do this yet?" I'm like, "I don't know, dude. He's your son." He's like, "Well, he doesn't have a very strong work ethic, and blah, 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 and he doesn't do any of these things right." And I flat out told him, I said, "Look, Robert, I get it. You want to complain. Everybody needs that minute or two to vent. But the only person David's ever worked for in his entire life is you. If you don't like his work ethic, if you don't like the way he does things, that's on you. You can't blame it on a previous employer. You can't blame it on bad habits he picked up anywhere else. He's only ever worked for you. I said, I'll tell you what my dad did. My dad owns his own business. My sister finished college. This is back in Florida. She couldn't find a job, so my dad said, here, I need help at the office. Why don't you go work for me? My dad said that lasted about 90 days before he fired my sister because all she wanted to do was sit around on Facebook. He's like, yeah, she thought she was going to come in and sit around on Facebook on the computer all day long and then get a paycheck. She wasn't actually doing any work. He goes, so I fired her. And I said, and then he followed up. He said, I got her a job with a larger company. They're not a direct competitor of mine because we don't go after the same customers, but she can, she'll go in and she'll get the experience that she needs to work in this kind of a field, and she'll have a boss who's not her father. So I told my friend that. I said, maybe you need to let David go, call up a competitor or something, let him go have help him find a job at another company, a company where he, he actually runs the risk of being fired. Because right now you're his dad. There's very little chance you're actually going to fire him, that he's going to get in trouble enough for you to fire him. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so there's a very real chance you just need to do something like that. And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I got so much work. I can't afford to lose anybody right now, blah, blah, blah. And that was always his excuse. I have so much work, I can't afford to lose anybody. And it's like, you hire somebody else. You hire a chief administrator. You hire somebody, a billing specialist or an office manager or something to do all this bonehead work. The sending out of proposals and the responding to RFPs and the taking in checks and running to the bank and stuff. You hire somebody for that. You pay them. Well, I already have David. You just said David was a problem. David wasn't doing it right. David wasn't doing it well enough, So what is it? Either you just want to complain for the sake of complaining, or you want to solve your problem. And he's like, I can't fire my own son. And then I and David were having lunch one day, and we're talking months later, and I've heard these stories over and over and over again, and we'd sit there at lunch, and Robert would complain about certain things at his work, and I'm like, why don't you just handle it like this? I mean, I don't see how it's a big life-altering event. When you got a customer doing this, just treat them like that. When you got a client doing this, just enforce the contract. Say, hey, we have a contract. It says, here are our duties, here are yours. That's why you have a contract, and blah, blah, blah. And then one day we're sitting there, and he was complaining about a bunch of things, and then he looked, David was sitting there at the table with us, but he wasn't really paying attention, and Robert said, well, I got all these problems. They can all be traced back to one point, but it's not like I can fire him. And David just kind of looked up, and he's like, huh? What? What's going on? I mean, it was funny, but it was definitely, it was Robert's passive-aggressive way of saying, David needs to get his shit together, or, even his own dad is going to let him go. But I don't know if he ever did, because Robert ended up retiring, bought a small house, like I think 1,000 square foot house on an island off the coast of Florida, the kind where there was no road or bridge or anything. You had to take the ferry, and ferry only ran twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. So if you missed the ferry, you stayed on the mainland. Or if you missed the ferry, you didn't get to go to the store that day. But he bought it in cash, retired, left the business to his son, David. He actually asked me at one point, he's like, hey, I'm going to go retire. David's going to be in charge. Will you come work with him? And I said, no. And he goes, what do you mean no? And I said, I want to work with David. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't listen to anybody. And I'm not going to be tasked with steering a sinking ship. I can't believe you said that, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, I'm just calling it like I see it, dude. There's no future and there's no reward. Now, if you want to leave me in charge, I'll get your stuff going. If you want to, and then leave David second in charge still, that's fine, whatever. But I'm not going to be the guy that's blamed when everything fails because you don't want to blame your son. So that was kind of one of the last times we spoke. Turns out, like 2 years later, I get a call just out of the blue, like, hey, Jason, what's up? And I'm like, hey, Robert, how's it going, man? How's Florida? And he's like, oh, no, I'm back in Colorado. And I'm like, oh, I thought you retired. And he's like, I did. But David screwed up the company so bad, I had to come back and work, or else I wasn't going to have any kind of retirement. And I'm like, oh, fair enough. How'd he screw it up? And he's like, oh, he just lost me some of our biggest clients, and he was messing up over here, and a lot of our employees left when I left, and, because they, some of them said they didn't want to work with David, and I'm like, yeah, this is all things that happen, which is exactly why I didn't want to be involved. I knew it was going to happen. David's not a leader, for sure. He's not even a very good manager. He needed to be started at the bottom, not the top. But his dad started him at the top, so he never learned those responsibility things. He never learned self-accountability. He never learned how the employees actually get things done, or how things are done, so that he can address them. He can either make them better, or he can retrain, or whatever. He never bothered to get a relationship with the employees because, they were his dad's employees, and, you don't eat with the help. Blah, blah, blah. David was just that guy while his dad was not. So, his dad had other issues. He thought every employee was stealing from him. He actually hired me a couple of times to do that. He's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And I was like, watching TV. Why? And he's like, well, I got some employees I'm pretty sure are stealing from me. Can you, if I paid you, let's say $100, will you go, sit at the office and watch? Just tell them that you're there doing some other work or something? And I'm like, I guess. I'll bring a book, I'll bring my laptop, I'll just do whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's fine, blah, blah, blah. And then fast forward, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching the employees all night long. Well, not all night long. I'm watching them from like 6 o'clock to midnight or something like that. And, they were 100% trustworthy, 100%. They didn't steal anything, or at least not while I was there. But he had me do that a couple of times with his employees. Hey, I think they're stealing. I think they're lying on their timesheets. I think they're doing this. I think they're doing that. And never once were they actually doing it. He was just paranoid that, his employees were lying. When they were claiming 8 hours a day, he's like, there's no way they were there 8 hours a day. And I sat there and I'm like, yeah, dude, they were there 8 hours a day. They were there at, 7:30 in the morning. They broke for lunch around noon. They came back at 1. And they worked until 4:30 in the afternoon. That's 8 hours. No, that's got to be wrong because, there's no way in hell. And, he did not trust his employees. But he trusted his son too much. Whatever. Anywho. So, yeah, we don't talk too much anymore. It was actually funny. He called me out of the blue a few months ago. Maybe the end of last summer. I just get a phone call from him, and I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is Robert from this company. And I said, yeah, I know, I got caller ID. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. I think I dialed the wrong number. And I'm like, it's okay, but what's going on? He's like, no, I think I got the wrong number. Sorry, sir. And I'm like, sir, who do you think you're talking to? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I dialed the wrong number in my phone book. I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't even know if he realized who he called. But whatever. We all make our own decisions. And, Robert's problem when he was running his business was he was so busy running around trying to put out fires that he wasn't growing his business. He wasn't putting any resources back into making his business larger or getting new customers or or anything. He wasn't putting into place processes or systems to ensure everybody's doing something the same way, to ensure that things run smoothly. And these are all things that I brought up with him over the course of the years of being his friend. And each and every time he told me that, I didn't know what I was talking about. He'd been in business for 20 plus years doing it this way, and it worked out. It's worked since day one, and it works now. And I'm like, whatever. I'm not the one who works 20 hours a day. I'm not the one I think the whole point of this was because his kids spent their entire lives not knowing their father because he was working 18, 20 hours a day, 6 days a week. And they're like, yeah. So he's like, yeah, my kids don't know me. They don't know anything about me. We don't have a relationship because I work all the time. The only time they see me is on Sundays when we go to church. And then sometimes I have to go back to work. I have to go finish things up so that it's ready for Monday. And then his kid, when David and I were talking one time, David confirmed the same thing. He's like, yeah, he goes, my dad was never around when we were kids. My mom raised us. We didn't really have a relationship with our dad until we needed money. When it was time to go to college, that's when he wanted to, or that's when he got involved. And when we needed a car or when we needed, cell phones or something, he'd just hand us some money and he'd go back to work. And I'm like, yeah. Because he did not at any point put in the proper systems or, the proper policies or training, or, he didn't want to spend $100 on something because he considered it frivolous, even though it would have saved him, $2,000. That's just the way that he worked. And, whatever. Wasn't my life. All I could do was say, hey, man, there's a better way to do it. And, if you don't want to listen to me, that's fine, but listen to other people. I don't have time, man. I'm like, go to a chamber of commerce, talk to other business owners. I don't have time, man. Talk to an outside business consultant. Have them come in and look at your policies, your procedures, and how you do things. I don't have time for that, man, and I don't want to pay for that. That stuff costs $1,000 or thousands of dollars. And I'm like, yeah, but what if you spend thousands of dollars and you can save tens of thousands of dollars, or you can get back 6 hours of your day? Because there's no reason in the world why after 25 years of business, you should still be working 20-hour days. You need somebody that you trust that can tell you what you're doing wrong and that you're actually going to listen to them. And he's like, oh, I don't got time for that. I'm too busy. I'm working. And I'm like, well, there's your problem. So, anywho, I'm home. I'm going to go in, take a shower. What else? Yeah. Try to figure out what I want to do with the rest of the day. I was being quiet because the roommate's bedroom window was open, and I don't know if they're sleeping or if they're up or whatever.